Corbett Wall with DVAuction, here with your feeder flash for Tuesday, March the 5th, brought to you in part by the Witex Corporation. Since 1967, Witex has provided excellence in animal health, including but not limited to all-American ID tags for all classes of livestock. For more information, go to y-tex.com. Also, Beaver County Stockyards. Talked to them at Beaver here on Tuesday for their feeder cattle auction, and don't forget they've moved their cow sale to Wednesdays. But here on Tuesday for the feeder cattle auction, they're expecting around 5,000 head. They'll have 500 to 700 calves. They'll be weighing 400 to 600 pounds and mostly all weaned. Have about 4,000 yearlings. Be 1,000 head of 7 to 9 weight yearling steers there, mostly in load lots. Be 600 or more 7 to 8 weight yearling heifers there, and then be a lot of odd lots and some grazing yearlings and things to make up the rest of that. But be a pretty good sale there at Beaver County here on Tuesday. Wednesday for the cow sale, Lane Conkle told me he just didn't have any idea what all they were going to have. Most of their customers come from that fire area down there in northeastern Texas Panhandle, and those guys have got so much to do besides bringing a few cows to the sale, if their cows made it through the fire or not. So he doesn't have any idea really what kind of cow run he's going to have. He did say he's got some local fancy Angus, about 30 head of them, be heavy bred heifers weighing about 1,000. They'll be pretty nice if somebody's looking to kind of increase their cow herd a little bit. He also told me that there had been some cattle that had come in that had been scorched in the fire. Not too bad. Said that you know, it wasn't too much on stalker type cattle or yearlings. Most of those cattle were on wheat. Of course, the wheat doesn't burn, so they were safe from the fire. It was mostly on cow herds out there, and it was terrible. And so it just kind of reiterated what we've been talking about how devastating that fire was. And he agreed with me it's going to be in the multiples of 10,000s, and probably closer to 100,000 than 10,000. So be a lot of cattle in there, guys. The markets were higher again. Feeder markets to start out on Monday. Board was down sizably, but didn't seem to bother anybody, especially grazing cattle, sharply higher. How many more weeks can we go with grazing type cattle 10 to 15 bucks higher? They just continue to do it week after week after week, but they paid no attention to the board. Of course, your feeder board was up almost $4 on Friday, so being down less than $1.50 for your March on Monday doesn't really bother them that much. But these markets are good, and the calf market is better now than it was when I started this report here about a minute ago, but just keeps getting better. We've got some legislative things that we've got to talk about, and I hate talking about that kind of stuff because it doesn't seem like we ever get much done in your legislative stuff. But we've been talking for the last 2 or 3 years that the Magoo administration has been wanting to embolden your packers and stockyards. We were down to where packers and stockyards really didn't have their own administration hardly anymore, and most people think that P&S agents are worthless as tits on a boar hog, and I wouldn't disagree with that, especially for order buyers that just keep getting notices to either raise or lower their bond. And it's only for the ones that are licensed and registered for that. The ones that are going to give people trouble, of course, they don't have any information on them, so they don't give them any kind of trouble. But the Packers and Stockyards Administration could use some emboldening there, and like I said, the Magoo administration wanted to do that. They were wanting to look into collusion practices with your packers, unfair trade tactics that we know that they participate in, and every time they get accused of it, of course, JBS just wants to plead out and pay the fine just as quick as they can. That's just a cost of doing business for them. We have seen on several different types of livestock where your big packers have been found guilty of price fixing, and they just want to pay to get out of that. Sometimes their cameras get screwed up on the grading, and then they just pay their way out of that. But the things that the Biden administration wanted to do to the P&S Act would be to maybe start, enforcing some of those rules. Back in 1920 or 1921 when they started those, we enforced them back in those days, and we enforced all the rules of the P&S Act. And then after your stockyards kind of went by the wayside in the 1960s, and then later from that, they just didn't pay attention to anything. But they are wanting to make it a little bit easier for some of your producers to sue the packers whenever they believe that they've been a victim of collusion or unfair trade practices and things like that. Well, naturally, your National Corporate Beef Association, NCBA, come out with a press release here early this week that their new president said that they are totally against that. They want to, in fact, ease any kind of regulations against them, which, I'd be all about easing regulations, but not whenever it comes to the marketing, because we know that they've got the upper hand on everything, and we know the things that they do to try to keep prices down. But it doesn't surprise me that NCBA come out against that. When I don't think anything's going to amount to anything about it. I don't think they're going to get it pushed through. But we did have a White House administration come in and want to pursue that, and a lot of it is because Mr. Magoo wants to blame a lot of the food inflation on the packers. Whenever a lot of the changes that he made when he came into office caused most of that inflation, guys, and most of it due to energy. But we did see that, and it didn't surprise me to see on NCBA was on the wrong side of that. But we did see another issue that's come out that all cattle industry groups are working together on, and that is to prevent beef imports from Paraguay. And why we're getting beef imports from a third world country that doesn't have near the health, the cleanliness, and the slaughter practices that we adopt here in this country, the more modern type practices, by taking stuff from Paraguay, which is known to have foot and mouth disease, and apparently we're just running scared from foot and mouth disease. Well, even in the beef, we know why would we want anything backing up here and unloading from Paraguay. But I looked at a U.S. Cattlemen's Association press release, and I usually kind of follow them because they're the ones that are for the small producer for most of the time. And they said it is time to get a hold of your senators once again. And I know I'm all the time telling you guys you need to call your representatives, your legislators, but they're saying we need to get with our senators and tell them that we want our senators, whoever they are, to be working with Senator John Tester from Montana. Of course, he's a Democrat, but he's a champion of agriculture. And Mike Rounds of South Dakota, another senator. We want our senators to work with them and urge support of the discharge petition, which would disallow any imports of beef products from Paraguay. Why we're getting that crap? That was just a backslap deal. The reason that we're getting that stuff in the first place, and we shouldn't be getting that stuff. I realize we're in tight supplies of beef, but we can increase it from our neighbors that we know better and don't have these horrible diseases rampant in their country. But there's some things on the legislative to kind of look at there. I want to tell you about the Keller's Broken Heart Ranch, and that's my friend Dwight Keller up there in North Dakota. They're going to be having their production sale on March the 7th here this week, guys, at 1 o'clock Central at the ranch near Huff, North Dakota. Now they've got some really, really top quality Simmental genetics there, 119 high performance red and black Simmentals, and then they've got some Sim Angus. And guys, that Sim Angus deal is kind of where it's at right now, because you want the black and you want the Angus for the marbling, but you want the Simmental to get some leg under them and build a frame that you can hang a lot of weight on, which is what the industry is after right now. So you want to pay attention to that sale. It's Keller's Broken Heart Ranch there. On top of those bulls, they're going to be selling 74 fancy open replacement quality heifers there, guys. And that's this week on March the 7th at 1 o'clock Central. View and bid that sale on DVAuction.com. Let me talk to you about your board for Monday to open the week. April live cattle down 177 at 186.67. June down 142 at 182.57. Your back months were all down from 32 cents to 77 cents. Feeder cattle for March down 142 at 251.55. April was down 2 1/4 at 255.75. Back months on feeder cattle were all down from 80 cents to as much as 240. But like I said, it didn't bother your feeder cash feeder trade in your sales at all on Monday to start the week. March corn up 5 1/4 cents at 417.5. March beans up 4 cents at 11.47. Kansas City hard red winter wheat for March kind of ended that contract up 22.5 cents a bushel at 602.5. That has been so volatile. But your weighted average on last week's negotiated fed cattle trade out of your 5-area feeding region had 62,400 head sell negotiated out of the 5-area, compared to 57,400 last week, 72,400 the same week a year ago. Talk about your live sales of steers and heifers in the 5-area. Had a price range of 180 to 185, which was steady. Your weighted average on a live basis was 35 cents higher than the previous week at 183.30. Your dress trade was lower, 288 to 295. Which the price spread was actually $1 to $5 higher, but we had most of the cattle sell at 290, where they were mostly selling at 292 the previous week. So your weighted average is lower. Dressed steer weighted average 290.36, down $1.25. So and you say, well, why was the dress trade lower? Well, the tag on the cattle, the muddy cattle, are getting cleaned up a little bit, so they're not given the premium or a bonus to guys that are selling the cattle dressed as much. So it's simple as that. Nationwide, we had 71,700 head sell negotiated compared to 72,900 the previous week and 90,500 the same week a year ago, which would have been a pretty good movement. But of the 71,700 that sold negotiated, about 21% sold for the 15 to 30 day delivery, which they always tell you got to be watching out for that, because it looks like they're trying to set you up for a fall on the market, guys. Negotiated grid sales last week totaled 37,700. Forward contracts for 37,400, and formula sweetheart sales 242,300 head. And that's what NCBA likes. That's why they're against the emboldening of the P&S Act, because they like the formula sales. That's what their packer partners want. That gives them all their needs to be filled, and they don't have to get aggressive in the cash market and bring competition in and start bringing about higher prices. But of the 4 out of 5 areas we get information from, Iowa sold 23,700 negotiated last week, which is pretty good for them. Nebraska sold 19,700. Kansas sold almost 14,000, which is good for them. And Texas only 5,100. Your box beef cutout values were mixed on Monday. Choice was up $1.02 at 306.30. Selects, which gained so much ground last week, were down 57 cents on Monday at 295.17. And our slaughter started out pretty slow, guys. So they're definitely backing off the slaughter this week, starting out on Monday with only 116,000. 124 or 125 would be normal. So we're likely going to have a really, really disappointing slaughter here this week. Talk about what else is going on. Kansas Regenerative Medicine Center has 2 Kansas locations, one in Kansas City, the other in Manhattan, Kansas. They have treated thousands of farmers and ranchers from around the country for orthopedic and autoimmune conditions for the past 10 years. For more information, go to kansasrmc.com. Talk about your feeder cattle market. Your real-time index on DVAuction late in the day on Monday sitting at 249.03 based on an 800-pound cash auction steer. That was up another 77 cents, so really gaining ground there. Talk about some other sales around Cleveland County Livestock in Heber Springs, Arkansas. They've been a broadcaster with us here at DVAuction for quite a while. They were back online and back selling Monday after being closed for quite some time due to a fire that took out their barn. So we're glad that they're back online. And then Gulf Regional Livestock in Lucedale, Mississippi, they're a DVAuction broadcaster. They're going to be having a special sale this Saturday. It's called the Carcass Performance Sale. They're going to have bulls, cows, and replacement heifers there for you guys. And Molly Herring is a great guy there, and Eric Weaver too. So if you want to do business with some good people, do business with them. Talk about your big sales on Monday. Oklahoma National Stockyards in Oklahoma City at 8,500 head. Feeders were $3 to $6 higher on a down board day, and calves were $8 to $10 higher, guys. That's very, very significant. Oklahoma City, they kind of depend on your corporate feeders in there, and for them to be that aggressive and push that market that much higher, tell you what, that's real. Joplin Regional Stockyards in Carthage, Missouri had 9,300 on Monday. The heavy feeder steers were steady to $3 higher, but your grazing type steers, calves, and lighter weight yearlings under 7 1/4 sold $10 to $15 higher. My goodness. Heifers steady to mostly $5 higher, with the 4-weight stocker heifers as much as $12 higher. Look at your NationalBeefWire stick out sale of the day, which was Joplin Regional Stockyards. Had 660 head of 4-weight steers, average 452 at 336. 934 head of 5-weight steers, average 549 at 306.80. That includes 56 head that weighed 564 at 322 in Joplin, guys. How about 1,122 head of 6-weight steers, average 645 at 282.60. 869 head of 7-weight steers, average 738 at 253.45. And 751 head of 8-weight steers, averaged 858 pounds at 230.88. Look at some heifers. Of course, they're all well tested, all the weight groups, and look at the changes on them. The changes are so much higher on the grazing type cattle. 741 head of 4-weight heifers, average 455 at 293.99. 818 head of 5-weight heifers, average 552 at 270.94. There were 973 head of 6-weight heifers. They averaged 645 at 246.95. And almost 800 head, 798 head of 7-weight heifers, average 726 at 236.56. Another great sale at Joplin Regional Stockyards, and they have been knocking them dead here of late, guys. Give you some individual quotes from all around. How about Aberdeen livestock sales in Aberdeen, South Dakota? They sold 59 big steers, weighed 993 at 235. A month ago, you had to push to get 8 weights to bring 235. Now you got 1,000 pounders in Aberdeen, South Dakota bringing 235. Wow. Got to back them into $180-something market. Ouch. How about Gainesville Livestock Auction in Gainesville, Missouri? South Central Missouri, down there in the Ozark Hills, guys. 89 head of 587-pound steers bring 324.75, weighing nearly 590, guys. That is a big, big time quote. And I had a good time on Monday at Buck Ridge Cattle Company. They had their production sale, and I gave a talk there. And those people are native of Gainesville, Missouri. So we talked quite a bit about Gainesville, Missouri the last couple of days there around Seymour, where they're located now. But the most impressive quote that I saw anywhere on Monday, your Macrocin No BS top quote for the day, come out of Russell Livestock Market in Russell, Iowa. They sold 68 steers, weighed 802 at 256.50. And that's your feeder flash for Tuesday.